Welcome to Toy Business Unboxed, your gateway to the secrets of the toy industry. Here, Jason Shea, a toy entrepreneur and expert in the field.
Every product we develop is really inspired by some of the real life experience that we have with our son.
60% of all toys last year were sold on Amazon, which is incredible.
Be passionate about it because it's a road, it's a journey.
Like when you have an idea that you think is like gonna somewhat like change the world, make things better, I'd say go for it.
We'll guide you through the enchanting world of toy design, marketing, and manufacturing. Now let the unboxing begin.
Welcome back to another episode of Toy Business Unboxed. Today we have a special guest, Andrés, the creator of HexPath, a game that's redefining what a board game could become. And what started out as an experiment with different patterns has evolved into award-winning and MESH-accredited games designed to spark creativity. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you, Jason, for having me.
So first of all, would you mind sharing with our audience, like what started this whole journey with you creating the games, and of course, like what was your background before you started the game company?
Sure. So my background, I just love drafting, technical drafting. So I've always, since I was a kid, I just with rulers and pencils, I just love drafting. And for the last 20 or so years, 25 years, I've been doing civil engineering drafting and CAD design. But what started this whole thing was back in, I think, 2008, 2009. I came across these Truchet patterns. And everybody's seen them around. They just didn't know what they were called. It's basically these tiles that have two different colors. These square tiles that have two different colors. And as you tile them together, they generate these nice patterns. And as you rotate them randomly, the patterns change, even though they're all the exact same square. Mm-hmm. And so I started playing with those. And there's some variations where instead of the two different colors, you have little paths connecting the two sides. Those basically generate little like mazes and labyrinths. And so so that's what got it started. Just for years playing with those patterns on the computer on my on our free time. And then little by little, it started becoming more of a, just looking for other ways of using the patterns. So I don't know how far you want me to get into the whole process, but
what moment do you realize that you could become like a full-fledged board game?
Oh, it wasn't until years later because it actually started, like I said, just playing with the patterns. Nothing having to do with any games whatsoever. But and then there was we had in our history, we like to show our little ferret, our pet. We have for a while there, we had a ferret, and ferrets love tunnels. And so we had the ferret playing with the tubes, those AC unit tubes. Mm-hmm. And we noticed that the ferret would get tired or bored after playing with the same tube over and over.
Yeah.
So I went back to, thinking it would be cool to use those Truchet patterns for instead of just flat tiles to make them like cubes. And those lines, instead of lines, having tubes. And so when you connect those cubes with tubes in them, many of them in the floor, the tubes would connect and create a tunnel. So the idea was that I would place those on the floor, have our ferret Ted play in the tunnels, and whenever I would notice that he would be, bored, we just rotate one or a few of the cubes, and the tunnel would change. And even the idea was to grow that into a way that it would be more automatic, that the cubes would rotate automatically. But as you can imagine, at the beginning, playing with, trying to create the cubes myself, cutting a little piece of wood and the tubes and everything was a big, it was very difficult. And this was just something I was doing in my free time. So after a few years trying, Ted passed away. And so I kind of put that aside. And for years, it was kind of just in the back of my mind, like, oh, it would be nice to do that, but it would be too complicated to do, these big cubes for big animals like big rodents like a ferret
Yeah.
or cat. So I started thinking maybe something smaller for like insects or for small rodents. During that time is when I started realizing that maybe a cube was not the best solution. Maybe what the best would be a hexagon shape, because I'll give you more variety in terms of the connection paths instead of just the 4 sides.
Okay.
And again, the whole difficulty of creating those 3D tunnels was always a challenge. So that's when I decided to make them just tiles. And instead of them as tubes, as tunnels, I made flat, but still with the channels in them. And the reason for that was that even though I gave away the idea of having the tunnels, I wanted to keep the idea of the, I guess, the channels that would guide marbles through the channels. That's when I switched. Instead of animals or pets, I switched to gaming. And that's the origin. That's the first switch that we did, was changing from that idea of pet products to an actual toy.
And
yeah,
for our audience, that's kind of hard to visualize exactly what you're referring to. I think you have a sample with you. You might
Yes, I
also
do.
sharing the sample and see how like it actually work in
Yeah.
real life.
And so what I can do is I'll put a few of the tiles here, and if you can see, I'll probably tilt this down a little bit. So if you see the tiles, they're flat, but they have channels in them.
Yeah.
And so you can put small items like marbles, and they will stay within the channels because of those walls. And so that the original idea was to have games that would take advantage of those channels. However, what I'm showing right now, this is not the original version. The original version was actually made out of wood and made it with a CNC machine. So the channels were nice and deep because they were basically made for the height of a marble.
Yeah, I also pulled out your website just for a better picture. It's kind of
Awesome.
hard to
Yes.
visualize it.
And
Let me
it's
make it a little bit bigger so people can visualize it for those that's actually watching the video instead of listening in.
Yeah.
It's a very unique concept, so it's kind of hard to explain.
And you can even go to the history because there's a couple of images there. So what I was saying is I started with the CNC machining. Yeah, those are the Truchet patterns. They're stead. And those are the original ideas for the hexagon. And as you see, the marbles, if you go up a little bit to the marbles, so that was the original inspiration for changing it from pets to play toys, was the marble. And as a kid in Colombia, we had this game called Vuelta a Colombia, which is like a tour of Colombia. And what it was is you would either draw, like you see on the picture, you draw with chalk on the pavement. You draw, a path, and you would toss either like caps or stones following the paths, and whoever gets to the end of the path first wins. But you can also do that same version on dirt. You can create these channels on the dirt using a stick or something, and you would push the marbles along the path, trying to get there first. So the idea was to convert that marble game, but on a tabletop situation where you could simply bring a bag of tiles together, and then you can play. Once you're done, you could remove them and take them with you. So it was infinitely reusable anywhere you were where there was a flat surface.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest challenge to bring this idea into life?
Well, the biggest challenge was finding a way to create it. And I have to say, I guess timing was great because when I first started playing with the idea, there was really no mention of like 3D printers or anything like that. It was very, very nascent. The only 3D printer I had access to was one in the regional library that I was like 45 minutes away from here. And if you see the picture, that's the first attempt I did at 3D printing, and it was horrible. It was really bad. It took you to have, anyways. Over time, there were more. There was more access to 3D printing. It was either at the first chance I got was at a maker space called Moonlighter. And that was basically on my way home. So I would always stop by all the way there, play a little bit with it, leave the prints going, and then continue home. That helped a lot. So that's, I think if there hadn't been a access to makerspace or 3D printing or CNC machining, I don't think I would have been able to pursue this, because I would have been stuck doing things at home, with rudimentary tools, or and it would be a much, much slower process. So that was definitely a catalyst, having that ability.
I see.
I purchased a 3D printer myself to make the iteration process faster, and I didn't have to, wait to get a chance to go to the makerspace. I could just iterate real quick, leave it printing at home, come back, continue. So.
I see. And it's like a pretty long process for you. Like, how many years did it took you?
I mentioned the first started playing with Truchet patterns back in 2008. The whole issue with our pet ferret Ted was 2009, 2010, and I started playing with the actual 2013 or 14, something like that. So it wasn't until I switched, like I mentioned before, it was wooden tiles first, using CNC machining.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I realized that the wood tiles would be too heavy, and it would be too costly to manufacture.
Yeah.
That I switched to plastic and 3D printing. And that's when I started making the tiles much slimmer. And it was always, it could be either very easily manufactured. And once I did that, one of the things I mentioned in the history is that the whole idea of using marbles kind of went out the window for a while, because the plastic is so smooth that you could just push a marble and it would go halfway across the board in just one push. So it made it very silly. Yeah. And that's when we decided to put those dots, and use dice and pawns, because in my culture in Latin America and in many countries, but in Latin America, parchisi is, or parques as we call it, is very, very popular. And so we all grew up playing parchisi as kids, dice and pawns, and trying to get to the end. So it was natural for us to hey, let's put little, and that's how it morphed into what it is today. Mainly dice and pawns game. But I never wanted to stray away from the channels, as I mentioned before, because I want to, at some point, bring that feature, that useful feature, to other games in the future. Either marbles or little cars or little hex bugs, whatever it is. Just I want to be able to use those channels.
I see. Thank you for sharing that as well.
Sure.
And because the product is very different than other product in the market, what kind of marketing have you tried, and which one has been working better for you so far?
It's been challenging because like I said, like we mentioned before, the process has been so long, and with just in 2019, I was finally able to patent the game. And before then, I was just looking for other games. I was basically looking for games that already had that feature, because I just wanted to play it. When I found that there was no other game that featured that, those rotating pieces, and that's another thing. I don't think I showed how it works. The biggest, how you call that? Is that they rotate, changing the paths. It's kind of hard to show it that way, but that aspect of the game where the tiles rotate, nobody else has ever done that before. So that's when I found that's when I thought it would be good to patent it. And because of that, it was a whole process of getting it patented. You know, how it is. But once I had the patent, I was able. But that wasn't back in 2019. I was able then to show it to the world and tell them, you know, start searching for manufacturers and how do you call that? Advertising it basically, but not as a product, more like to show people and say, help me do this, help me do that. How do I fine tune it? And obviously, COVID hit. So that put things in pause for a couple of years. I try to focus on the digital version because I didn't know where the physical board game was gonna go at that point.
Yeah.
But luckily we started, you know, slowly getting back to normal. And then the digital game then took us a back seat, and I jumped back to the physical version. And so finally, back into 2023, the very first thing I ever did to promote the game was to go to the Toy Fair, because as many people realize, I am not a game designer by trade. I just came to this happenstance, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so I was very new to the whole industry, and somebody just mentioned to me, you should take it to the Toy Fair. And I did. It was kind of like, many people don't really do that at first. And I kind of waited until I had like a quote unquote final product to go there.
Yeah.
And it was, it helped me a lot to connect with people and start realizing how the industry works. And I'm still learning. This is very, how do you call that? Because I have a full-time job, this is just my side time hobby, I guess you could say. It's not like I'm going to take courses. I don't go into academies or things like that, learning how to do the trade. It's more like, okay, I have some time to work on this today. What should I do? Try to learn whatever I can online and then apply it. So to your question, how I've been marketing it, I haven't really been marketing it because until just last month, because I didn't have a product until the official launch was on January 26th. Before then, I didn't really have a product to sell. I had the original product was what we thought was the final, and that's the product we took to the Toy Fair in 2023.
Yeah.
We were supposed to be selling that one, but once I went to the fair and I saw how many changes I had to make to that version, I decided to stop selling that one and stop marketing it. You know, basically not even start marketing that one, and put it on pause for another year. And so, marketing-wise, we started doing just social media, just barely a couple of months ago, and right now we're just looking for avenues to show the game, like the Toy Fair that we just went through back in March. And so I foresee the next few months are going to be very busy looking for different avenues. Obviously, put the game on Amazon. We already have a few stores picking it up. But this is just the beginning. We're just barely getting started. So.
Yeah, for sure. And because the product is very different. And of course,
very different.
You also want to highlight it. It's a little bit harder to explain how it works.
Exactly. And that's a challenge because I don't have anything. There's no like template that I could follow to just say, oh, just grab that, change the images and call it. Almost everything is different. Even the instruction manual, I'm rewriting. I'm with the help of David. He's really, really experienced in the field. I hired him to help me rewrite the instruction manuals because I wrote it to me, it's very obvious, you know, as you can imagine. Yeah. But many people, when they see that for the first time, they really are like, they kind of get lost. And so hopefully with this rewrite, it's going to be a lot more clear to people that have never seen the game before. And also we're going to be showing a lot more, uploading a lot more videos, showing how the game is played, how it's set up. And as you know, that it's not just one version of the game. There's at least 5 that come in the instruction manual with the original box, but we already added 2 more. And so you probably didn't know this, but in the last month after we spoke, we added 2 more versions of the game. And we're going to keep adding more. So the game is a living, breathing, I guess you could say a creative platform. And I'm not going to be, once people start purchasing it and using it, I foresee the community growing, people themselves coming up with games and adding them to the list. Just like playing cards, playing cards themselves are not really much of a game unless you pair it with some rules and some variations. So
I see. And what are some of the feedback you are getting from the retailer and some of the
yeah,
customers so far?
to me that's been the craziest thing, because originally the feedback was great among family and friends, and
Yeah.
it was awesome because they loved the game. They were always looking, ways to play it. But once I started getting the same feedback from the industry, not just from retailers, but also from other designers, from publishers, not just in the first fair in 2023, but this last one in March, it was even more of a positive feedback. That's every time I hear that, I get more and more excited, because it's not just a fluke. It's not like people found it interesting, but then they kind of got disinterested on it. Everybody keeps going back to it, and people that have purchased the game, they have whenever I get a chance to talk to them again, they say they love the game. They're still playing it. Their kids love it, and in general, it has been absolutely positive. There's been just a tiny few cases where people either don't understand the game,
Yeah.
or they are probably looking for something more challenging, more adventurous. And perfect example is Dungeons and Dragons games. People that look for that kind of adventure, a role-playing game, they don't see a way of playing those sort of games with HexPath. But at the same time, I'm not trying to create a game that's going to be liked by 100% of the people. I'm just hoping that everybody will find the interesting aspect of my game, the rotating tiles. And who knows, maybe eventually with the right accessories, the right set of rules, maybe you could adapt it to Dungeons and Dragons. Or it's imagination is really your only limitation with this platform.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned in the pre-interview that your game is also MESH-accredited.
Mesh,
Yeah,
yes.
so that's something I also want to kind of discuss. For our listener that doesn't know what MESH is, MESH also stands for mental, emotional, social health.
Correct.
And can you also talk about the aspect of your game that's encouraging some of that MESH
Yes, and
aspect?
I had no idea who Mesh was a couple of years ago. They reached out to me, they probably reached out to many games, saying we should get it checked or reviewed by them. And I was kind of hesitant because, again, I have no experience with the industry.
Yeah.
So I didn't know who they were or what they did. So basically I was, I'm not too sure. And I didn't really have the game ready last year when they first reached out to me.
I see.
So once I started researching it, and once I had the game ready, I decided to go ahead and send it to them. So what they do is they have a team of researchers bring the game out and have kids play with them, and they observe them and they interview them, and it's a pretty lengthy process as far as I understand. And at the end of the process, the researchers actually created reports and multiple with multiple aspects of gameplay. So it's not just it's a good game and that's it. They look at different aspects of the game, and they give you a report. And so depending on how many parts or how many aspects of the gameplay your game scores high, give you points, and like from 0 to 3 points, depending on if your game has that aspect and what level of that aspect your game reaches. And as you start getting points for each one of those aspects, they add them up, and your game has to reach a certain threshold. And I believe the threshold is minimum of 9 points. I don't remember at the top of my head right now, but I was very surprised that my game scored really high on cognitive on cognition, very high on problem solving, very high on adaptability, and so it scored very high on 3 of their aspects, and strongly on another 2 aspects. So when I saw the report, and it scored like a 12, I think it got 12 points or something like that. So when I saw that report and how the explanation, how they work, I was very excited because for the first time ever, somebody had taken it in a professional setting to kids. And I had never been able to do that because the only kids I have access to are my nephew and nephew. And they're like, I only see them like once or twice a year for a few days. And so that was great to get that feedback. It was very exciting. And also Mesh has been around for a few, I think it's pretty new. It's pretty only a few years, maybe 3 years, but they're very quickly becoming the go-to accreditors basically because of their process and how extensive it is and what they score.
We have Dr. Amanda Gummer on our podcast before talking about her program.
I know. So I was very excited to get that. And and just because we only got the game a couple of months ago, it's only now being shown to people and being sold to people. And the hope is that the more people see it, the more people play it, the more feedback we'll get. And if we need to, we'll adapt the game in future versions. But so far, everybody keeps loving that main game, Detour. It seems to be the more universal game, the race style game everybody gravitates to. So
I see. Yeah. So as well, wrapping up today's interview, if you have to share just one piece of advice with someone that's getting started within the toys and game industry, what would that be?
I would say definitely if you have an idea, follow it. And don't I would say don't rush to it. Definitely let it keep thinking about it, take notes, keep playing with it, find out what you can move forward with, and do it. Don't feel bad if you try something that doesn't work. Definitely just take note, learn from it, try something else. There are so many different ways of doing things nowadays. Like I said, with the 3D printing and nowadays with AI. I mean, really, just what ideas you think. So many people have so many ideas, and then years later, they realize or they say, "Oh, I had an idea and I never followed it." Well, just follow it and do it to the best of your ability. And don't get frustrated with it. Just if you start getting frustrated with how your idea is going, take a pause, put it aside, try a different approach, and then revisit it at a later date when you're ready to it.
Yeah, that's a very good piece of advice. And thank you again for being on our podcast today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and for our listener, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We hope you have enjoyed today's conversation and find it insightful and inspiring. If you like what you have heard, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your support and would love it if you can leave us a review and share the podcast with your friend and colleague. For more resource tips and the latest update within the toys and game industry, visit our website at toy-launch.com. Join the conversation and connect with us on social media using hashtag Toy Business Unboxed. We'd love to hear your feedback and suggestions for future episodes. Until next time, keep innovating, keep creating, and keep bringing joy to toys. This is Jason Shea signing off on the Toy Business Unboxed podcast. We'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye.